The chromatic halls of the Galactic Academy of Species Studies shimmered with the morning light of 3 suns, casting rainbow patterns across Zix 427's translucent outer membrane. Their bioluminescent spots pulsed with a mix of anxiety and excitement as they navigated through the bustling corridors, dodging floating data tablets and hurrying students of various species. Professor Kex 892, a respected Centaurian with silvery scales and multiple eye stalks, studied the thesis proposal floating on the holographic display between them. The professor's scales darkened, a clear sign of disapproval that made Zix 427 spots dim slightly. "You wish to study humans." The professor's translator conveyed both words and tone perfectly, making their skepticism unmistakable. "For a thesis on evolutionary dead ends." Zix 427's appendages curled and uncurled, a gesture their species made when defending a position. "Yes, Professor, but not in the way you might think. I believe we've misunderstood them fundamentally." The professor's eye stalks swayed in a pattern indicating amusement. "Misunderstood? They're one of the most studied species since their emergence into galactic society. What could we possibly have missed?" Zix 427 activated their personal data projector, displaying a series of charts in the air. "Look at their conflict resolution patterns over the past 50 cycles. Every predictive model suggested they would have engaged in at least 3 major interstellar wars by now. Yet they haven't. That's hardly groundbreaking, student. Many species choose peaceful paths due to technological or resource limitations. But that's just it, Professor." Zix 427's excitement caused their spots to pulse brighter. "They have the capability. Their ships, their weapons, they're not lacking in any way. The Galactic Defense Index rates them among the top 15% of spacefaring species in military capability." Professor Kex 892's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "So they're cautious, perhaps afraid of losses." "I thought so too. At first, Zix 427 manipulated the holographic display, bringing up new data. But then I found records of their responses to direct provocations. The Regilian border incident, the Proxima trade dispute, the Outer Rim piracy crisis. In each case, they demonstrated superior tactical capability before immediately offering diplomatic solutions." The professor's eye stalks went still, a sign of intense focus. "You're suggesting they're not avoiding conflicts because they must. They're choosing to avoid them because they can. It's the opposite of weakness, Professor. It's a form of strength we haven't properly classified yet." The office fell silent except for the soft hum of floating data tablets. Professor Kex 892's scales cycled through several colors before settling on a deep purple of decision. "Your thesis proposal is approved, Zix 427, the professor said finally, "but not as a study of evolutionary dead ends. This requires a different classification entirely. Perhaps alternative manifestations of species dominance, a case study of human diplomatic power." Zix 427 spots brightened to their maximum luminescence. "Thank you, Professor. I'll begin comprehensive data collection immediately." "One word of caution," Professor Kex 892 added as Zix 427 turned to leave. "The academic board has certain expectations about strength and species development. Your findings may face significant resistance." Zix 427's appendages formed the pattern for determination. "Then perhaps it's time for those expectations to evolve, Professor. After all, isn't that what science is about?" As they floated back through the iridescent halls, Zix 427's mind raced with possibilities. Their species prided themselves on pattern recognition, and they had spotted something in human behavior that defied every existing pattern. Now they just had to prove it. Their spots pulsed in rhythm with their thoughts as they headed toward the Grand Archive. If they were right, this wouldn't just change understanding of humans. It would transform how the galaxy viewed strength itself. The Grand Archive's data crystals pulsed with stored knowledge, their soft blue glow reflecting off Zix 427's membrane as they interfaced with the seventh crystal cluster of the day. Their appendages moved gracefully across the holographic controls, sifting through centuries of accumulated data about human diplomatic encounters. Cross-reference complete, the Archives AI announced in its melodic tone. Analysis suggests an 87% deviation from standard species development patterns. Zix 427 spots flickered with satisfaction. Display comparative military capabilities versus diplomatic resolution rates for all known spacefaring species. The air around them filled with shimmering data points, each representing a different civilization's history. Most followed a predictable pattern. As military capability increased, diplomatic engagement decreased proportionally. But the human data point pulsed in stubborn defiance of the trend. Fascinating, a voice commented from behind. Zix 427 turned to find graduate researcher Ven 998, their crystalline form refracting the archive's light. "I thought I was the only one working this late," Zix 427 said. "Your research request patterns triggered my curiosity." Ven 998 chimed, their crystal facets shifting to show interest. "You've accessed more human historical data in the past cycle than anyone in the Academy's history." "Look at this," Zix 427 gestured to a particular data stream. The Meridian Standoff. Humans had superior positioning, overwhelming firepower, and clear justification for preemptive action. Every strategic model predicted they would strike. But they didn't. Ven 998 finished, their crystals resonating with intrigue. Not only that, they initiated trade negotiations instead. The Meridians now rank among their closest allies. Zix 427 spots pulse with growing excitement. It's not an isolated incident either. They manipulated the controls again, bringing up a new series of holograms. The Proxima Expedition, the Ta-CT Resolution, the Sirius Treaty. In each case, humans possessed clear military advantages, yet they consistently chose diplomatic solutions. Ven 998's crystalline structure vibrated thoughtfully. Perhaps their technology isn't as advanced as we believe. Appearances can be deceiving. That's what I thought too. Zix 427 pulled up another data set. Until I found this. The hologram shifted to display classified footage from a deep space encounter. A human vessel, vastly outgunned by 3 hostile ships, executed a series of maneuvers that should have been physically impossible. Within moments, the aggressors were disabled, but not destroyed. Their capabilities exceed our estimates. Zix 427 continued. They're not avoiding conflicts because they must. They're choosing peaceful resolutions despite having superior tactical options. But that defies all known patterns of species development. Ven 998 chimed, their crystal structure flickering with confusion. Power inevitably leads to expansion through force. It's a fundamental law of galactic sociology. What if it's not? Zix 427's spots pulsed with intensity. What if we've misinterpreted the relationship between power and peace? The data suggests humans have developed something unprecedented. The ability to choose restraint precisely because they possess strength. The Archive's crystals hummed quietly as both researchers contemplated the implications. Finally, Ven 998's facets shifted to display respect. Your thesis will face significant opposition. The academic board doesn't welcome challenges to established theories. They'll have to accept the evidence, Zix 427 responded, their appendages forming patterns of determination. The numbers don't lie. Humans are rewriting our understanding of species development. They're proving that true power might lie not in the ability to dominate, but in the choice to cooperate. As Ven 998 departed, Zix 427 turned back to the data crystals, their spots pulsing with renewed purpose. They had only scratched the surface of this mystery. Somewhere in these records lay the key to understanding how a species could grow more peaceful as they grew more powerful, and why that might be the most remarkable evolutionary adaptation of all. The Earth Defense Station hung in space like a silver snowflake, its crystalline arms reaching outward in elegant spirals. Zix 427's transport pod docked smoothly in one of the visitor bays, their bioluminescent spots dimming slightly to adjust to the station's brighter lighting. "Admiral Chen will see you now," announced the station's AI, its voice warm and welcoming. Zix 427 noticed how different it felt from the clinical tones of Galactic Academy systems. Even their artificial intelligences reflected this peculiar human approach. The Admiral's office defied every expectation Zix 427 had formed from studying military leaders of other species. Instead of weapon displays and battle maps, the walls featured artwork from dozens of worlds. A painting done by a Centaurian child hung next to a crystalline sculpture from the Regilian Arts Academy. Most surprising was a carefully preserved piece of their own species' membrane art, the kind created during the phosphorescent festivals. Admiral Sarah Chen stood as they entered, her smooth movement suggesting comfort in the station's artificial gravity. "Welcome to the Earth Defense Station, researcher Zix 427. I hope the artificial atmosphere mix is comfortable." Zix 427's spots flickered with surprise at this consideration. "Very comfortable, Admiral. Thank you for accommodating my biological needs. Understanding and adapting to different life forms is essential to peaceful coexistence," Chen replied, gesturing to a specially designed support field that would allow Zix 427 to float comfortably during their conversation. "I understand you have questions about our military doctrine." "Yes," Zix 427's appendages moved in scholarly excitement. "Specifically about the Proxima incident. Your fleet had superior position, overwhelming force, and clear justification for preemptive action. Yet you chose diplomatic channels. Why?" Chen's expression shifted subtly. "Why do you find that choice surprising?" "Because it defies every strategic model we have." Zix 427's spots pulse with intensity. Power of that magnitude invariably leads to its exercise. It's a fundamental principle of species development. "Is it?" Chen stood and walked to a window overlooking Earth. "Look at our planet. Do you know what makes it unique among known habitable worlds?" Zix 427 accessed their research data, its high biodiversity and extreme climate variations. "Exactly. On Earth, we learned early that the ability to survive in one environment doesn't guarantee success in another. The strongest predator in the Arctic would perish in the desert. The most venomous creature in the ocean would be helpless on land." She turned back to face Zix 427. "We learned that true strength isn't about dominating a single environment. It's about understanding and adapting to many. When we reached the stars, we applied the same principle. Why conquer when you can connect? Why destroy potential allies when you can learn from them?" Zix 427 spots pulsed rapidly as they processed this perspective. "But surely there are times when force is necessary." "Of course," Chen nodded. "We maintain our military capability precisely because we understand its value. But having power and using it aren't the same thing. Sometimes the greatest show of strength is choosing not to strike when you could." She touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared showing Earth vessels providing humanitarian aid to a recently hostile species. "We call it strength through restraint. Every cadet in our fleet learns this principle alongside tactical training." Zix 427's appendages moved in a pattern indicating deep thought. "Your species developed the capacity for overwhelming force, specifically to avoid using it." "Not exactly," Chen smiled. "We developed it to have choices. The stronger we are, the more options we have, including the option to help those who once opposed us. After all, today's adversary might be tomorrow's ally, but only if you leave them room to change." As Zix 427 departed the station later, their spots pulsed with the excitement of discovery. They had expected to find the reason humans avoided war. Instead, they had found something far more profound, a completely new definition of power itself. The historical archives pod pulsed with a soft amber glow as Zix-427 immersed themselves in humanity's past. Three-dimensional holograms danced around them, each one capturing a crucial moment in Earth's journey to the stars. Their spots flickered in concentration as they pieced together a pattern that seemed to defy conventional evolution. Display. First Contact Era. Human Response Protocols. They commanded. The archive's AI complied, filling the space with recordings from humanity's earliest interstellar encounters. The first hologram showed the initial meeting with the Centaurians. By all historical precedent, the technological gap should have led to conquest, either by the more advanced Centaurians or by humans desperately seeking to catch up. Instead, the recording showed something unprecedented: humans offering medical technology in exchange for faster-than-light travel principles. Pause and analyze. Zix-427's appendages moved in scholarly excitement. Cross-reference with standard species development patterns. The AI's response was immediate. Analysis complete. Human behavior deviates from 97% of known first contact scenarios. Notable anomaly: simultaneous development of defensive capabilities and diplomatic initiatives. Zix-427 shifted their focus to another historical strand. This one detailed the great solar storm that had devastated the Rigilian colonies 50 years ago. The humans had barely established their own presence in space, yet the recordings showed their ships rushing to aid the very species that had previously threatened their borders. Their spots pulsed with sudden insight as they commanded. Display technological development timeline. Human weapons advancement versus diplomatic courts establishment. The resulting hologram told a story that contradicted everything they had learned about species evolution. Where other civilizations developed weapons first and diplomacy later, humans had cultivated both simultaneously. Their first starships carried both shield generators and translation matrices. Their orbital platforms housed both defense systems and cultural exchange centers. Access restricted files. Early conflict resolution protocols. Zix-427 requested. Their academic credentials barely sufficient for this level of clearance. The archives revealed something even more fascinating. Humans had developed a unique approach to potential threats, a three-tiered system that prioritized understanding over elimination. Every encounter began with attempts at communication, followed by demonstration of defensive capabilities, with force only as a final resort. A particular case study caught their attention: the Proxima mining dispute. Humans had discovered rare elements in a system they had already begun mining, only to encounter another species with claims to the same resources. Traditional models predicted a resource war. Instead, the humans had proposed a joint mining operation, sharing both the work and the profits. Cross-reference. Results of cooperative ventures versus military engagements across all known species. Zix-427 commanded, their spots brightening with anticipation. The data was undeniable. Human cooperative enterprises showed a 43% higher success rate in resource acquisition than military conquests by other species. They had turned peace into a practical advantage. Zix-427's appendages formed patterns of academic excitement as they dictated notes. Human historical development suggests an evolutionary path previously thought impossible: the concurrent advancement of military and diplomatic capabilities, leading to a species that grows more inclined toward peace as their capacity for war increases. The implications were staggering. Every known model of species development treated military and diplomatic power as opposing forces. Humans had somehow transformed them into complementary strengths. As they prepared to end their research session, one final recording caught their attention. It showed a human medical ship rendering aid to a damaged vessel, the same vessel that had attacked their colony just days before. The human captain's log entry was brief but profound. They were enemies yesterday. They're patients today. They might be friends tomorrow. That's how peace works. Zix 427 spots pulsed with the thrill of discovery. They weren't just documenting an unusual species anymore. They were witnessing an entirely new form of evolution, one that might reshape their understanding of civilization itself. The secure archives required triple authentication, including a molecular scan of Zix 427's membrane patterns. The chamber they entered was darker than the main archives, illuminated only by the pale blue glow of classified data crystals. Their bioluminescent spots provided additional light as they navigated through the restricted section. Access granted to Classified Incident Report, Deep Space Encounter 2317b. The security AI announced, its voice carrying more gravitas than its public counterpart. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a remote sector of space near the galactic rim. 3 sleek vessels of unmistakable human design patrolled the region. The merchant escort ships Solar Guardian, Pacific Sentinel, and Northern Star. Zix 427 spots dimmed in concentration as they watched the scene unfold. A group of 5 raider vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their weapons already charged. The pirates were flying modified warships, their capabilities far exceeding typical merchant escort vessels. Pause playback. Zix 427 commanded. Display tactical analysis. The AI's response was immediate. Raider force possesses 3-to-1 advantage in firepower. Historical combat algorithms predict 97% casualty rate for merchant escorts in direct engagement. Resume playback. What happened next made Zix 427's spots pulse with astonishment. The human ships executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Their formation shifted like a living thing, each vessel moving in perfect coordination with the others. The raiders fired first, a barrage that should have overwhelmed the escort's shields. Instead, the human vessels performed what the tactical analysis labeled as a gravitational slingshot defense, using their combined shield harmonics to redirect the energy of the attack back at their adversaries. Within moments, 4 of the 5 raider ships were disabled, their weapons and engines offline. The 5th turned to flee, but the human vessels already had it surrounded. Analyzing combat effectiveness, the AI reported, human tactical capabilities exceed all previous estimates by factor of. Skip tactical analysis. Zix 427 interrupted, their appendages trembling with excitement. Show next phase. The footage continued, but what happened next defied every combat resolution protocol in the database. The human ships immediately launched medical pods toward the disabled raiders. Emergency response teams in environmental suits crossed the void between vessels, carrying not weapons, but medical supplies and repair equipment. Access ship's log, Solar Guardian, Zix 427 requested. The captain's voice filled the chamber. Raider vessels disabled. Initiating emergency response protocol. Detected atmosphere leaks in their engine sections. We have wounded aboard those ships who need immediate assistance. All hands, prepare for rescue operations. Zix 427 spots pulsed rapidly as they processed this information. The humans hadn't just defeated their attackers, they had done so in a way that specifically allowed them to render aid afterward. The entire encounter had been choreographed not to destroy, but to disable and then help. Access medical logs. Post-encounter, they commanded. The data streamed past. Treatment provided to 37 raiders, emergency repairs to prevent ship decompressions, even basic supplies provided to the defeated crews. Not a single fatality on either side. But it was the final log entry that made Zix 427 spots flash in revelation. The human captain had written, "Former raiders have accepted rehabilitation program offers. Their ships will be repurposed for merchant service. Combat effectiveness was never our goal. Rehabilitation was. The best victory isn't the one that defeats an enemy, but the one that creates a new ally." Zix 427's appendages moved in patterns of academic excitement as they dictated notes. Humans demonstrate unprecedented tactical capabilities, yet consistently utilize them for minimal damage and maximum rehabilitation potential. Their strategic advantage lies not in their ability to destroy, but in their capacity to preserve and transform hostile elements into cooperative ones. As they prepared to leave the secure archives, Zix-427 realized they had discovered something far more significant than advanced battle tactics. They had found evidence of a species that had evolved beyond the very concept of victory and defeat, reaching instead for something entirely new: the art of turning enemies into friends. The research chamber's walls shimmered with cascading data streams as Zix-427 arranged their findings into a coherent theory. Their private study pod in the Academy's Theoretical Sciences wing had become a nexus of holographic displays, each one showing a different aspect of human development. Display primary evolution patterns, all known spacefaring species, they commanded. 1,000 light points appeared, each representing a civilization's path from planetary bound to interstellar society. Their spots pulsed thoughtfully as they observed the familiar pattern, a clear correlation between increasing military capability and decreasing diplomatic engagement. Every species followed this trend, except one. Overlay human development trajectory. A blue line cut across the standard pattern like a comet across the night sky. Where other species turned toward military expansion upon achieving spaceflight, the human line showed something unprecedented: simultaneous growth in both military and diplomatic capabilities. Begin recording theoretical framework, Zix-427 announced, their appendages moving in scholarly excitement. Traditional xenosociology has misinterpreted the relationship between power and peace. We assumed they were opposing forces, that a species must choose one or the other. Humans demonstrate this is a false dichotomy. The holographic displays shifted, showing scenes from their research. The merchant escort incident played alongside footage of first contact scenarios and diplomatic summits. Humans have developed what I term integrated strength theory. Their military capability isn't separate from their diplomatic efforts. It's an integral part of them. They build powerful ships precisely so they can choose not to use that power. They develop advanced weapon systems specifically to have more non-lethal options. Zix-427 manipulated the controls, bringing up training footage from Earth's defense academies. Young cadets practiced combat maneuvers alongside conflict resolution strategies. Their spots brightened as they noticed something they had missed before. Computer, analyze training protocols. Ratio of time spent on combat versus diplomatic scenarios. The results confirmed their suspicion. Human military training dedicated equal time to both disciplines. It wasn't a compromise, it was by design. The implications are revolutionary. They continued, their spots pulsing with increasing intensity. We've been asking the wrong question. It's not about why humans avoid war despite their strength. Their strength is precisely what allows them to avoid war. The displays showed examples. Human ships with advanced shields that could be modified to protect other vessels, weapon systems designed to disable rather than destroy, military vessels equipped with state-of-the-art medical facilities. They transcended the traditional evolution of power, where other species see strength as the ability to destroy. Humans have redefined it as the capacity to preserve. Their entire technological development is built around maximizing options rather than maximizing damage. A subtle chime indicated someone entering their research space. Professor Kex 892's eye stalks swayed with interest as they observed the displays. "You've been busy," the professor noted, their scales shifting to a curious shade of blue. "Professor, look at this." Zix-427's appendages moved in patterns of academic excitement. Humans haven't just developed an unusual strategy. They've evolved an entirely new approach to power itself. They build their strength not to dominate, but to have more choices in how they interact with other species. The professor's scales darkened thoughtfully. The academic board will challenge this. It contradicts centuries of established theory about species development. The evidence is undeniable. Zix-427 responded, their spots pulsing confidently. Humans prove that true strength isn't about the capacity to destroy. It's about having the power to choose peace precisely because you could choose otherwise. They're not an evolutionary dead end. They're an evolutionary leap forward. As the professor departed, Zix 427 turned back to their displays, adding final notes to their theoretical framework. They had begun this research expecting to study a paradox. Instead, they had discovered something far more significant, a new definition of power that might reshape the galaxy's understanding of strength itself. The Grand Symposium Chamber of the Galactic Academy loomed before Zix 427, its ancient crystalline walls reflecting the light from 1,000 bioluminescent spots of the assembled academic elite. Their own spots pulsed with nervous energy as they prepared to present their findings to the most distinguished xenologists in known space. The academic board occupied the highest tier of the chamber, 12 beings representing different species and scholarly traditions. Their chief examiner, a venerable quantum mind housed in a levitating crystal matrix, pulsed with ancient wisdom. Proceed with your presentation, researcher Zix 427. The chief examiner's harmonic voice resonated through the chamber. Zix 427's appendages moved with practiced precision across the controls. The chamber darkened, and holographic displays sprang to life around the assembled scholars. Esteemed members of the board, they began, their spots pulsing with scholarly confidence. Our understanding of species development has been fundamentally incomplete. We assumed power and peace were opposing forces. Humans prove otherwise. The first hologram showed the merchant escort incident. Several board members' biosignatures registered surprise at the tactical display, followed by obvious confusion at the rescue operation. This is highly irregular, interrupted Professor Yix, their crystalline form vibrating with skepticism. No species with superior military capability chooses to aid their attackers. It defies evolutionary logic. That's precisely my point. Zix 427's spots brightened. We've misunderstood the evolutionary advantage of power itself. Observe this data from human education centers. The hologram shifted to show young humans training. A class of cadets practiced combat maneuvers, then immediately transitioned to diplomatic protocols. Their instructor corrected both their fighting stances and their peaceful negotiation techniques with equal emphasis. Humans don't separate power from peace, Zix 427 continued. They integrate them. Every tactical advance they develop includes protocols for peaceful application. Every diplomatic initiative is backed by the capability to defend it. The quantum mind's crystal matrix pulsed with interest. You suggest this is not a deviation from evolutionary principles, but an advancement of them. Exactly. Zix 427's appendages moved in scholarly excitement. Other species evolved toward either diplomatic or military dominance. Humans evolved the ability to choose between them freely. They build strength not to use it, but to have options. The chamber erupted in harmonic discussions. Professor Yix's crystal form vibrated with objection. This contradicts every established pattern of species development. Does it? Zix 427 activated their final holographic display. Or have we simply failed to recognize a superior evolutionary strategy? Look at the success rates. Data streams filled the chamber. Trade statistics, technological advancement rates, colonial expansion figures, all showing human civilization flourishing beyond predicted models. They've achieved more through selective peace than any recent species has through military expansion, Zix 427 explained. Their method isn't just different, it's more efficient. The chief examiner's crystal matrix shifted through complex patterns. You propose that their apparent restraint is actually their greatest strength, Zix 427 finished. They developed the capacity for overwhelming force specifically to avoid using it. Every weapon they create includes non-lethal options. Every warship carries medical facilities. They've evolved beyond the simple dichotomy of power versus peace. The chamber fell silent as the board processed this information. Finally, The quantum mind spoke again. Your evidence is compelling, but the implications are unsettling. You suggest our entire understanding of species development requires revision. Yes, Zix 427's spots pulsed with conviction. Humans haven't rejected the use of power. They've redefined it. Through them, we glimpse the next stage of species evolution, one where strength isn't measured by the ability to destroy, but by the wisdom to choose when not to. As the board withdrew to deliberate, Zix 427 noticed their own reflection in the crystalline walls. Their spots were pulsing with an intensity they had never seen before. They had done more than defend a thesis. They had challenged the galaxy's fundamental understanding of strength itself. One stellar cycle after their groundbreaking presentation, Zix 427 floated in the observation dome of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, their spots reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Below them, representatives from 30 different species mingled in the grand reception hall, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Your research has sparked quite the revolution, Professor Kex 892 commented, their scales shimmering with pride as they approach. Even the militant clades are sending observers to human diplomatic academies now. Zix 427 spots pulsed with subtle satisfaction as they watched a group of Regilian warriors practicing meditation techniques with a human instructor. 6 months ago, such a scene would have been unthinkable. The latest statistics from the Galactic Council are remarkable. They responded, activating a small holographic display. Interspecies conflicts have decreased by 37% since the adoption of human-inspired diplomatic protocols. The display showed footage from various corners of the galaxy. A former pirate fleet, rehabilitated through human methods, now served as a deep space rescue service. The once hostile Meridian Collective had opened its borders for the first time in centuries, establishing cultural exchange programs with Earth. Your thesis has become required study at every major academy, the professor noted, their eye stalks swaying with interest. Even my most traditional colleagues cannot deny the results. A soft chime announced another arrival to their observation platform. Senior Diplomat Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, approached with a warm smile. I thought you might like to see this, she said, retrieving a data crystal from her pocket. The first graduation ceremony at the new Integrated Defense and Diplomacy Academy. The crystal's projection showed a diverse group of cadets, humans training alongside beings from 24 different species. They moved in perfect unison through both combat forms and peace gestures, their movements demonstrating a harmony of strength and restraint. We had to update the curriculum 3 times to accommodate different physiologies, Chen chuckled. But the principles remain universal. Power isn't about domination. It's about having the freedom to choose better options. Zix 427's appendages moved in a pattern of academic satisfaction. The most fascinating development is how different species have adapted the concept to their own cultures. The observation dome's displays showed examples across the galaxy. The crystalline beings of the Centauri systems had modified their traditional war dances into diplomatic ceremonies. The quantum minds of the Rigel cluster had developed new algorithms incorporating human concepts of strategic restraint. The Galactic Council has commissioned a long-term study, Professor Kex 892 added, their scales shifting to thoughtful blue. They believe this could represent a fundamental shift in species development patterns. Not a shift, Zix 427 corrected, their spots pulsing with conviction. And evolution. We're watching the emergence of a new stage in galactic civilization. Below them, the reception hall had transformed into an impromptu cultural exchange. A group of Meridian energy beings were teaching their art of light weaving to fascinated human children, while Earth musicians collaborated with Regilian sound shapers to create entirely new forms of harmony. Your research began with a question about human mercy, Chen observed. But you discovered something far more significant, didn't you? Zix 427 spots brightened in agreement. We thought humans were an anomaly. A species that grew more peaceful as they grew more powerful. Instead, they showed us that true power was never about the ability to destroy. It's about having the strength to imagine and choose better possibilities. As they watched the gathered species below sharing knowledge, art, and understanding, Zix 427 felt their spots pulse with hope for the future. They had set out to study why humans avoided war out of mercy. Instead, they had helped the galaxy discover a profound truth. The greatest power isn't the strength to end worlds, but the wisdom to help them flourish together.